King sold his first professional short story, The Glass Floor, to Startling Mystery Stories in 1967. After graduating from the University of Maine, King earned a certificate to teach high school, but, unable to find a teaching post immediately, he initially supplemented his laboring wage by selling short stories to men's magazines such as Cavalier. Many of these early stories have been republished in the collection Night Shift. The short story The Raft was published in Adam, a men's magazine. After being arrested for stealing traffic cones, he was annoyed after one of the cones knocked his muffler loose. He was fined $250 for petty larceny but had no money to pay. However, a check then arrived for The Raft, then entitled The Float, and King cashed it to pay the fine. In 1971, King was hired as a teacher at Hamden Academy in Hamden, Maine. He continued to contribute short stories to magazines and worked on ideas for novels. During 1966 to 1970, he wrote a draft about his dystopian novel called The Long Walk and the anti-war novel Sword in the Darkness, but neither of the works was published at the time. Only The Long Walk was later released in 1979. In 1973, King's novel Carrie was accepted by publishing house Doubleday. Carrie was King's fourth novel, but it was the first to be published. It was written on a portable typewriter that belonged to his wife. The novel began as a short story intended for Cavalier magazine, but King tossed the first 3 pages of his work in the garbage can. Tabitha King fished the pages out of the garbage can and encouraged him to finish the story, saying that she would help him with the female perspective. He followed her advice and expanded it into a novel. King sighed. He persisted because I was dry and had no better ideas. My considered opinion was that I had written the world's all-time loser. According to The Guardian, Carrie is the story of Carrie White, a high school student with latent, and then, as the novel progresses, developing, telekinetic powers. It's brutal in places, affecting in others, Carrie's relationship with her almost hysterically religious mother being a particularly damaged one, and gory in even more. When Carrie was chosen for publication, King's phone was out of service. Doubleday editor William Thompson, who would eventually become King's close friend, sent a telegram to King's house in late March or early April 1973 which read, "Carrie officially a Doubleday book. $2,500 advance against royalties. Congrats, kid, the future lies ahead, Bill." According to King, he bought a new Ford Pinto with the money from the advance. On May 13, 1973, New American Library bought the paperback rights for $400,000, which, in accordance with King's contract with Doubleday, was split between them. Carrie set King's career in motion and became a significant novel in the horror genre. In 1976, it was made into a successful horror film. King's Salem's Lot was published in 1975. In a 1987 issue of the Highway Patrolman magazine, he stated, "The story seems sort of down home to me. I have a special cold spot in my heart for it." After his mother's death, King and his family moved to Boulder, Colorado, where King wrote The Shining, published 1977. The family returned to Western Maine in 1975, where King completed his fourth novel, The Stand, published 1978.